Now that we've introduced ITIL and discussed some of the main ideas that guide the ITIL framework, let's get into the first stage of the service lifecycle, which is service strategy. In this section, we'll discuss the 4 processes that make up this stage of the lifecycle. Let's get started. So let's take a look at this. Service strategy consists of 4 processes: service portfolio management, demand management, financial management, and business relationship management. Before we get into the details of these processes, however, it's important to understand the purpose and objectives of service strategy, including how this stage of the life cycle adds value and how to define different types of services and service providers. The purpose of the service strategy stage of the service life cycle is to define the perspective, position, plans, and pattern that a service provider needs to be able to execute to meet an organization's business outcomes. Essentially, this stage of the life cycle outlines what the organization plans to do to reach its goal. Now that we covered the purpose, let's review the objectives. And as you see, there are 2 main objectives in this case: defining a strategy to deliver services and defining a strategy to manage those services. In order to meet those objectives, we need to consider the following questions. First, we need to define a strategy. A strategy is what allows us to reach a goal, and it's what moves us from point A to point B. We know where we want to go, so we decide what steps to take us there. Next, we need to identify services, like which services should an organization provide and who uses those services. Then we would need to define value. How is value created and how do we deliver value? Our next objective is to identify opportunities. Questions like how do we identify opportunities and exploit these opportunities to create services? Finally, we need to deliver the services. How will these services be delivered and funded? To whom and for what purpose? We answer each of these questions when we create our service strategy. You would have to have an effective strategy to provide value to your customers and add value to your business. So here's a question: how do we define value? For that matter, how would you define value? Because value is often measured by how much the customer is willing to pay for the service rather than the cost of the service or any other intrinsic attribute of the service itself. The value of a service is not determined by the provider, but by the person who receives it, because it's the customers who decide what they will do with the service and what type of return they will achieve by using the service. The value of a service is defined in terms of 3 areas: the business outcomes achieved, the customer's preferences, and the customer's perception of what was delivered. Now let's look at how value is categorized. Customers value an IT service when they see a clear relationship between the IT service and the business value they need to generate. The business value of an IT service is created by the combination of 2 components, which are service utility and service warranty. How do we define these components? Let's start with service utility. Utility is the functionality offered by a product or service to meet a particular need. Utility can be summarized as what the service does and can be used to determine whether a service is able to meet its required outcomes or whether the service is fit for purpose. Warranty, on the other hand, is the assurance that a product or service will meet its agreed requirements. Now, this may be a formal agreement such as a service level agreement or contract. Could also be a marketing message or a brand image. Warranty refers to the ability of a service to be available when needed, to provide the capacity required, and to provide reliability in terms of continuity and security. Warranty can also be summarized as how the service is delivered or whether the service is fit for use. Service utility and service warranty are 2 important concepts to really understand. So let's take a minute to go through a more in-depth example in this case, so you really understand how those concepts relate. I like to go on vacation. Sometimes I'll go skiing. And in those cases, I might want to go rent a car. Imagine that a service would be the rental car service in this case, and we would need a rental car to take us up the mountain, for example, so that we can go skiing. The different features and functions that I might require in my rental car would be heated seats, maybe special tires, and 4x4, for example. These are all things that make it fit for purpose, which would be the service utility in this case. Now, when I go to pick up the rental car with the different features that I require, I want to make sure that it's going to work. When I turn that key, I would need an assurance that it would be fit for use, and that would represent the service warranty in this case. So think of service utility are the features and functions that make it fit for purpose, whereas the service warranty would be the assurance that it would be fit for use.